Do you think there's any potential in this concept of a death ray? Watson Watt says he thinks it's unlikely.
The next sort of layer of the early warning lasagna.
They read the height from here.
Its origins are really quite peculiar.
It's incredibly well thought through, and it is incredibly pioneering. There's nothing like this in the world before this. It's just brilliant.
Well, welcome everyone to Walking the Ground with me, Al Murray, and James Holland. And here we are, right by Dover Castle over there, but behind us,
The White Cliffs.
the White Cliffs, and atop the White Cliffs, of course. Well, RDF, Jim.
Yeah, radar, as it's also known as.
No!
Radio direction finding.
Radio direction finding. It's not the acronym. We all know it by. It's not been coined yet, and we're trying to get right into the year, the summer of 1940.
Or the summer of 1934.
Yeah, I know, exactly, because the story of RDF, radar, or airborne early warning, because these are actually known as AEW stations.
Yes.
Officially, right?
Yes.
Right. Is the most extraordinary story. And of course, RDF is the cornerstone, well, one of the building blocks for the Dowding system.
Yes.
How the Dowding system is so cutting edge, and how it's moved on from its First World War airborne detection roots, and has the white heat of technology at the centre of it.
Well, I think the key to the Dowding system is really that it does have these different component parts.
Yeah.
And collectively, they add up to much more than the sum of their individual parts. Yeah. But you can't do the Dowding system without turning to RDF, radar. In fact, actually, those are modern masts. The real masts, actually just over there.
All right, okay.
Well, remains thereof. Yeah, so that's where we're going to go.
Yeah, but these great big sort of pylon things with cables hanging on them.
Yes.
Owe their origins, most extraordinarily, to science fiction.
Yes.
Don't they?
Yeah,
because, I mean, and when people say, what is the point of sci-fi? What is the use of it? Well, it saved Britain in the Battle of Britain.
That's the point of sci-fi.
The point of sci-fi.
Okay, so we're going to go and look at that. We're going to discuss RDF, how it came about and how it was put into practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the site of one of the first Chain Home sites.
Exactly.
Well, you've got to go back a little bit, haven't you, with RDF?
Yeah.
And the formation of RDF?
Yeah, radio direction finding.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously, come 1940, this is absolutely cutting edge technology. No one's got a system like this. The Dowding system is entirely unique.
Yep.
Right, and we're going to say that again and again, because that's the really important thing about it. But its origins are really quite peculiar.
Yeah.
Because in the 1920s and 1930s, there are lots of
sci-fi stuff coming to the fore.
Sci-fi ideas coming to the fore. And a death ray is a preoccupation of a lot of people, right? There's a con man called Harry Grindle Matthews who in 1923 announces he's made a death ray, or a ray that can stop an engine, ignite gunpowder, or kill enemy soldiers as far away as 4 miles.
Yeah, fantastic.
And there is an episode where he demonstrates it to some poor civil servant has to stand in front of the thing. And they fire it.
Can you keep a bit more still, please?
Exactly, and obviously nothing happens, right? But the thing is, it's a thing that's in people's minds, and actually,
and it's out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, while then I think he's Air Vice Marshal, maybe he's Air Marshal at that point. Hugh Dowding is in charge of research and development at the Air Ministry in 1934.
Because the Air Ministry is the sort of state body that the RAF
that runs the RAF.
Yeah, and people come in and out of the RAF, in and out.
And you do a stint for a couple of years, just like you do today.
Yeah.
And he's been director of training for the RAF, and now he's research and development, and he's very keen on all this stuff, and he's a forward-thinking moderniser.
Yeah.
And the Tizard Committee gets formed under the scientist Henry Tizard.
Yeah.
And they're looking into kind of new methods and new science. And they approach Robert Watson Watt, who's a Scottish scientist.
Yeah, who's already invented HFDUF.
Who's already invented HFDUF.
Yeah, high frequency direction finding.
Yes.
Which is a way of, if something's transmitting a radio signal, you can locate it, triangulate its position. Yeah. Which it obviously has incredible military applications.
Yes, of course.
But is being used in shipping at the time.
But anyway, it's just so brilliant, because the Tizard committees say, do you think there's any potential in this concept of a death ray? Watson Watt says he thinks it's unlikely. But he does have a method for locating and directing aircraft using radio methods.
Yes, exactly.
Which is the forebear of his version of RDF, which later becomes known as radar. But we're not using that word.
We're not using the word radar. It's RDF, not radar. And one of the things, I mean, it's interesting because the BBC is involved in the tests because the BBC, after all, at that point, is basically brand new. It's a start-up. It's got an aerial. Seriously, they need someone with an aerial, right? It's got an aerial.
It's got an aerial, that'll do.
And how it works is you send out a radio wave and the reflection comes back. You measure the speed of the reflections return.
And you read this on a cathode ray screen.
Exactly.
Which is basically a screen with lots of sort of crackle and movement up and down.
But it's really apparent, isn't it, to Dowding and to the Air Ministry that this thing has enormous potential.
Yes. They set up at Bordsey Manor, which is is it Suffolk or Norfolk? I think it's Norfolk, isn't it? But anyway, it's on the East Anglian coast. And they start doing tests. And suddenly they start thinking, oh, we're onto something here. And Dowding becomes the Commander-in-Chief of the newly created Fighter Command.
Yeah.
And thinks, okay, well, the whole point of Fighter Command is this is the defence of what was the Metropolitan Air Force.
Yeah.
This is the defence of Great Britain by air means.
Yeah.
And he realises that he can harness science to create a defensive system.
Yeah.
Which no other country is doing.
Well, and what pre-exists is using observers on the ground to track Zeppelins, you know, and then the Gotha bombers that come at the end of the First World War. So there's some muscle memory.
Yes.
But what RDF provides him is you can look out to sea.
Yes.
At much greater distances than you ever could. And so what that gives you is literally an early warning, airborne early warning, AEW.
An early warning system,
What these sites were.
Well, so we've got these huge great pylons over there, but this is the basis of them. Yeah. And you have the receivers and you have the sender outers, don't you? Transmitters. That's sender out. I prefer sender outers.
I think maybe they were called that at the time. I mean, the technical
transmitters
stuff.
And receivers. Yes, that's a much better way of doing it. So they have. I can't remember which way round it is, whether it's a transmitter or a receiver. One's 370 foot high and one's about 250.
Yeah.
And anyway, they would have been here. This is where the pylons would have. You can see the basis of them.
These are the footings for the pylons.
Yeah. And actually, over there, there's another one which is slightly. They've left a little bit more metal.
Yeah.
In the top of the concrete.
Yeah.
And that's the house where they would have done the reading of it.
Yep. Looked at the tube.
Yep.
Figured out what it was.
The cathode ray tube.
And then called it into Bentley Priory.
Yeah, and straight into the filter room.
Yeah.
Which we're going to look at in a bit. But by 1940, they've got, by the start of the war, not only have they got Chain Home, which is these big ones, they've also got Chain Low.
Yeah.
And Chain Low, the range is not as far, but it picks up greater detail.
Yeah.
So you've got these two parts, and each of the radar chain, RDF chain stations.
Thank you.
RDF. Radio direction finding.
Yeah.
Each of the radio direction finding bases, and they're all along the coast, has both a Chain Home, which is the longer range stuff, which is going to do about 120 miles, and the shorter range stuff. It's only looking out to sea.
What this means when the Battle of Britain comes, though, is that you can because France that way, you can see stuff forming up over France, which is where the Germans are assembling their Luftwaffe to come to England.
Exactly that.
So what do the Germans know about this?
Well, they're rather supercilious about it because they've got much more sophisticated radar.
Yeah.
The point is their radar isn't incorporated into a system.
Yeah.
So they've got a Würzburg, which can rotate 360 degrees. And there's that famous scene in the Battle of Britain movie, which I think is actually pretty accurate to the way they were thinking, where Goering looks through and it goes, what's this? And it goes, RDF, and it goes, radar, their secret weapon.
Yeah.
And they're all sniggering.
Yeah, I mean, they've sent a Zeppelin the year before, haven't they, along the coast?
Yes, and it hasn't worked because they've jammed it the whole way through. They know exactly what's happening, the British, so they jam the whole system.
Yeah.
So all they get is static. They don't pick up anything.
Yeah.
And actually, it then floats inland and goes all the way down across the whole of southern England. Across Salisbury, actually, where I live.
But they've had a look.
I remember talking to a chap in my village who remembered seeing it flying over.
But the Germans have had a look. It doesn't look like radar to them. It looks like something else. So they assume
they discount it, really.
They discount it.
They know it's something, and they know it's important. They know it is a detection device. So on the 12th of August, they go all out to hammer it.
Yeah.
To hammer them along, and they do actually knock out the one on the Isle of Wight.
Right.
But a fake radar is sending out signals, so they don't think they've knocked it out.
Right.
And actually, they don't knock it out for very long. They manage to repair it really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But they find it really difficult to actually hit and destroy anything.
Yeah.
So after the 12th of August, Goering says, let's not bother about it. and that's that.
Well, I mean, another...
Whereas in sharp contrast, by 1944,
yeah,
you know, British Typhoons have knocked out 92% of the German radar stations along the Atlantic Wall.
Yeah. And in 1943, the Japanese Navy commissions a death ray.
Of course they do. But anyway, we're going to look at the other component parts. The filter room, the observer core, how it all works. Yeah. And it's just fascinating.
It's brilliant to be here, but I didn't put my boots on, so I'm not going to scramble up.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of cow poo, isn't there?
Yeah. So that's the RDF.
Yes.
Chain Home on the coast.
Yep.
Well, once you get inland, and we've come inland, we're at Bentley Priory, so right at the absolute...
The headquarters of Fighter Command. This is Dowding's headquarters.
The nerve centre.
Yep.
But the next sort of layer of the early warning lasagna, as you will, is the observer corps.
Yeah.
And we've come to Bentley Priory to talk to someone who knows all about all of this.
Yes, we've got Group Captain Tim Willbond. Tim, thank you for helping us out on this. So the Observer Corps, I mean, they're kind of some of the kind of unsung heroes of the Battle of Britain, aren't they?
In some ways, yes. In fact, Roderick Hill later on called them the silent service of the air defence system, which was a pretty strange term, but nevertheless, you're absolutely right, yeah.
And so RDF is getting information before the coastline. The Observer Corps is providing information once they've crossed the coast, and also, crucially, detail.
Yes. A long-range surveillance system, known as Chain Home, was optimised to look out over the sea. It could have looked over land, but the decision was made not to report over land. And in fact, Watson Watt called it the biggest mistake they made on the installation of radar. But nevertheless, the situation was that once a raid crossed the coast, it was only seen by the Observer Corps. And the Observer Corps continued the process of getting that information onto the battle tables at group here at Fighter Command and down to sector level.
So there's about 30,000 in the Observer Corps. Yeah. Who are they and how are they organised?
Well, the story goes back...
They're civilians, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, oh, indeed, they are civilians. And the story actually goes back to the First World War. But prior to the war, they were really only just around London. And from about 1936, then there was major expansion. The idea was they were about 5 miles apart. They were county-based. Yes. So they basically told the information from the posts, each of these posts, of which in each county there'd be probably 20, 30 posts, something like that.
But what have you got at one of these posts? Sort of 3 men, 4 men?
Right, okay.
Telephone, cup of tea, pantograph?
Yes. All of those.
Yeah.
It depends where they were, but they'd probably be dug in, surrounded with a wall, probably sandbags or just earth or whatever. Each one was different, but generally speaking. And in there you would have a minimum of 2 observers. One of them would be working the pantograph, and the other one would have the old head and breast set. They had fixed lines, they weren't radios, into the group centres, the group observer centres.
So the point is that RDF can pick up mass. You can get a sense of a raid coming in, but you can't do detail. The Observer Corps is providing the crucial detail: numbers, height, type.
So what would happen is a track would be built by the filter centre on the radar information. That information is then told to the group centres that are on the coast.
So look out for this. This is coming your way.
So they get heads up, they're coming. Right. What they can do, as James rightly says, is add a lot of detail. So they know roughly where it was going to hit the coast. The group centres would get the information. They get the information that raid's out there. Yep. They would then phone the post, they'd say, raid coming, expect between this sort of,
ballpark.
And so they'd be waiting, looking out, and pick them up, of course, as they approach the coast.
And it's partly binoculars?
It's all binoculars.
But it's also pantograph?
And a pantograph, yeah. But the initial searching is done, again, by either of the guys who are looking to get that first pickup before they can then get onto this.
And what does this pantograph do? So what does this apparatus do? Look.
One of the observers would be down here. He'd be lining up in azimuth where the raid's coming, and using this, would be moving this bar, this sighting bar, into a position so that the raid was focused on there.
Crosshairs.
Yeah. Now, when they've got that, they then read off, using that line, that number 8747.
Right. And what does that mean?
That is the position.
That's where it is.
Now, that position is peculiar to these particular graphs.
So you'd say Kent Station 42, and my reading is 8747.
But first they'd identify the post,
Yep.
and then they'd read off the position, and then the height. And they read the height from here.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
So this
in
is your
thousands
height
of feet.
Yes.
Measurement. So when they're lined up, they've got two readings. They've got the reading that gives the position.
Yep.
Remember, this place has been surveyed.
Yeah. So we know exactly where this is.
So they can say, yeah, there's about 100 of these. And they look to be a mix of Dorniers and HE111s or whatever. And they could do that, which the radar couldn't do.
Yes. That goes to the Observer Corps group area, then disseminated very quickly and constantly updated, isn't it? That's the point. And that goes into the operations rooms at sector, who are then able to relay that to the pilots and the commander of whatever squadron up in the air.
Yeah. It went to two places, certainly in the 11 group area, as I said, into the sector for the timeliness. So the sectors got their heads up and got a position pretty quickly. But it also went to the filter centre as well.
Yes.
So they incorporated it into
their bigger picture.
Into their bigger picture.
Yeah. But the other key thing about the observer corps is they overlap. They're constant. They're given a space of the sky that they've got to cover, and it all overlaps. So there's no part of the sky which is left unviewed, unwatched, unobserved.
Yeah. And once you've eyes on, you follow the thing's progress all the way through.
You keep reporting, unless you're told otherwise. If they're getting several, they say, this one's the best report, so you report, the others stop, so they can manage the situation.
And they don't want to be overloaded with...
No, they basically try to make sense of the reports that are coming in. That's the report they pass.
Well, what we need to do is look at the filter centre.
Well, yeah, we need to look at the filter room, because in 1940, this is the only place here at Bentley Priory where information from RDF chains is coming into, and it's then being filtered, processed, pushed back out again. That's where we're going to go next.
The thing to remember always with this technology is this is absolutely the cutting edge piece of equipment. This is the right piece of equipment from the time. Yeah. It might look like a theodolite or something from Nelson's Navy, but actually this is your
I want one.
Height and range finding piece of kit.
I want
brilliant.
Right, to the filter room.
To the filter room. Let's go. So Tim, this is the filter room.
Yep.
How accurate is this display? Could you tell us?
Well, as I designed it and had to do another research, I'm going to tell you it's pretty damn good.
Excellent.
But it was roughly fabricated with scaffolding bars and wood and all the rest of it in one of the rooms here, in this room.
Yes, this was part of the old house, and the room was taken over. Next door to where the operations room was put, a door was actually knocked through, so they had to have this mezzanine floor. Was knocked through there so they could interchange between the operations room and the filter room. But this was replicated as it was, and a lot of it was done with scaffolding.
Yeah, amazing.
Incredible.
But the information is coming from the RDF chain, and it's coming straight into here, and it's the job of the filter room to do exactly what it says on the tin, filter that information and then pass it back out again. So what are we looking at here?
Well, first of
Obviously
all,
a map.
Let's concentrate on the long-range radars, Chain Home, because they were these are the ones that had the sort of ranges that we're talking about. And they are represented on this map by the circles, the black edge and the white. And those are the Chain Home radars that go all the way up the coast. And each of those radars was given a colour code. And the reason they were given the colour code is so the range rings, which was shown at every 10 miles from each of those radars, you could instantly associate it with a radar from which, which information was coming. So what happened was that around the table there were tens. This is just a small representation, and there'd be on both sides. There'd be a number of people working. The first ones are represented by a lady who we modelled for the occasion, known as Grog. And Grog was a plotter. Now the plotters differed very much from the operations room plotters. And each plotter was connected directly to one radar.
Got it.
Right.
And they would then pick up the information from the radar. And in the trays in front of them, one here, they would have a number of counters, and the counters would be color-coded to the radar they're talking to.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So orange or light blue or whatever.
Say there's a yellow one here, a yellow counter, and they get the information and they place that on the table in the position they're given from the radar site.
Yeah.
Now what happens is, of course, that's the first position. So the next person that gets involved is a chap called the filterer. And what he would do, he would look very quickly as the track built up. So for instance, here we've got the green, and you can see suddenly there are a number of green counters and a number of black counters. And you'll notice they've got a number on them. Mm-hmm. That number pertains to what is called the pulse clock.
Right.
The pulse clock changed every 30 seconds from 1 to 5. And so the plotter would have to look to get that report in. She'd look at where it was, 5, so she put a 5 on that, and that would go down on the table. So what he's getting is these single reports coming with a time on them. So
got it.
He can only associate counters with the right time on, because that's a 30-second slice.
So that's to make sense if there's different readings in, to cross-reference them, shake them down and figure out whether you've one formation or 3, or how the reports reciprocate one another.
The biggest problem was the radars were inaccurate in azimuth. So what they had to do was this range cutting. These way these lines come in. There's that track. They would look at that track, or the track as it is built, and they would take the radar report, and they, using these lines, parallel them round until they crossed.
Yeah.
And then when they crossed, that was the most accurate position they could take. And then they'd establish the track, which was the arrows, and then they would build what is called the raid plaque, which would give you the information. Hostile, 020, that's the information that's passed to the observer corps, the strength and the height.
Got it. And this information is then passed up to people who are on telephones, who pass that back to group and sector stations.
This is then told by these ladies that you see, well, there should be one up there. They're looking down on it. As soon as that's established, you have a track. You can tell to the operations room.
So this is to create a big picture of exactly what's coming across the Channel and across the North Sea, and then that information is then devolved down to the people who actually have to deal with it.
It goes to the operations table next door. And the next door table, the only one that had the whole UK.
Right.
Fantastic.
All the rest had subsets of that.
Incredible.
Well, thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
A very quick lesson.
Oh, I reckon I could probably identify an incoming formation now. Jim, what about you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, great, good.
Well, here we are in the operations room at Duxford, which is a sector station. And these things are just genius, because this is effectively the control room. This is where the Battle of Britain is being controlled, where the air defence of Great Britain is being controlled from. And all these operation rooms are basically the same model, same layout. And what they enable you to do is, for the men on the dais, the men and women on the dais, the ground and the ground controller who is sitting here, to be able to see a two-dimensional map of the battle as it is playing out.
Except it's three-dimensional because it's got altitudes in it as well. And then, of course, time is a really important part of it. So it's literally a four-dimensional. If people look at flight radar on their phone, the app of the planes moving around, it's that, but with the altitude made clear on the information on the board, right?
Yeah. So all the information from the radar stations is going purely to the filter room at Bentley Priory.
Yeah, where they're range cutting and filtering information. Yeah.
That is then passed back out again to the group and sector stations.
Yeah.
So the group operations room at Uxbridge, for example, for 11 Group, to the sector stations such as here at Duxford. So the ground controller is talking to the squadron commander in his Hurricane or Spitfire or whatever it might be, or the wing commander, from here. And he is able to say, enemy formation coming in on a bearing of whatever it is, 80 plus, Angels 20.
So 20,000 feet. Angel's 20 is 20,000 feet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the language that has been developed for this are words that cannot be confused when going over a static laden radio set.
Yeah.
You know, because we've all heard those radio sets from the Second World War. It's all lots of crackle, lots of distortions, all the rest of it. So Angels, you want to avoid soft consonants.
Yeah.
You don't want soft vowels. You want Angel.
Yeah.
Tannic leaders, snapper, bandits.
Yeah.
They're unconfusable.
Yeah.
Not that that's a word, but you know what I mean. And so you're getting this information. This is being updated all the time, and you can further cross-reference how updated it is by putting in little red arrows, charting the course of an enemy raid, and different colours. And that goes to the sector clock. There's a sector clock up on the wall. You can see immediately what the time is, and you can see it's divided into red, yellow and blue sectors. So that corresponds to the arrow on the map.
Yeah. So how long ago that bearing was taken or was estimated?
Done in 5-minute sections.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting as well, I mean, the information here is not just what the enemy are up to, but what you're doing. So there's the state of the squadrons on the wall, so actually what numbers they are.
Yep.
You can vector the squadron with the greater numbers to the greater problem, and so on. So you're in command of that. And what's interesting is that those numbers are inevitably going to be variable depending on how many serviceable aircraft they've got, the states of the crew, have they got the people? And then obviously, it's not simply, is there a squadron ready? It's, are they released? Are they available in 30 minutes? Are they at readiness? Are they ordered to readiness? Are they standing by? Are they on patrol? Have they left the ground? Are they in position? And all of that, you need to know all of that as well. So you're marshalling your own forces as much as the enemy.
Yes, and your ground controller can see all that at a glance because the lights aren't on at the moment when we're looking at them, but they would be in the heat of the battle. So you can see it immediately that 611 Squadron has sighted the enemy.
Yeah.
Or has been ordered to land, or whatever status it might be.
Yeah.
And the ground controller can talk to the squadron leader or wing commander or whoever it is up in the air at Angels 24 at 24,000 feet, and he can see exactly where they're moving, and they're being plotted by the plotters as well, moving 19 Squadron towards the enemy, and saying, you should be able to see them any minute now.
Yeah.
The latest information is 200 plus, plenty of snappers high above.
But it's interesting how comprehensive it is at this level, this information system. And obviously the thing to remember is it's not just the RDF, it's not just radar, it's the full integrated system.
It's incredibly well thought through, and it is incredibly pioneering. There's nothing like this in the world before this. And the Germans just have not come up against this before.
No, because how could they? No one has.
It's just brilliant. I think what's so amazing about these operations rooms is this is where the whole Dowding system comes together. You've got all these different component parts. You've got radar, you've got the observer core, you've got identification frame. RDF, sorry.
I can't bear it.
Yeah. And you've got HFDUF, high frequency direction finding. You've got this massive information, and it all comes together here.
Yeah.
It is a genius system. The challenge, though, of course, is that this is designed for something that actually doesn't happen.
Yes, the fly in the ointment is that after all, if the bomber is going to get through in the war that Britain is expecting to fight, it's coming from Germany. It's coming from Germany over the Netherlands and across the North Sea.
Yeah.
Which is why, and we're here at Duxford, which is why Duxford is such an important fighter station in the plans they've made for the war. But of course, that hasn't happened. France has fallen. The Germans are the Pas-de-Calais, and they're coming the quickest route, and they're 20 miles away, and you've got 15 minutes from spotting them on the radar to get the planes high enough in the sky to shoot them down. But it also means that the Germans have fighter cover, and that is the change and the challenge that Fighter Command has to face. Is they have a fighter-on-fighter battle to have to engage in that isn't part of the plan, and that's the point of tension, really, and the point of jeopardy as the Battle of Britain unfolds. This is what's remarkable about the Dowding system. They have planned for an air battle over Britain, and that gives them an enormous head start. Where the Germans can cause trouble is that fighters that would otherwise be dealing with unescorted bombers are having to deal with Messerschmitt 109s, basically.
And the other thing is, I can't stress enough, is that in July 1940, this hasn't really been tested.
No.
It's been tested a bit because, you know, there was an air raid on day one of the war and all the rest of it on 3rd of September 1939. But this hasn't really been tested. And what's going to happen, they hope, as the battle unfolds, is that everyone in their RDF station, in their operations room, on the observer corps, are all going to get better at interpreting the information they're receiving and channeling that information. But in July 1940, this is not really being tested.
No.
And that's the big challenge. It's a cause of massive anxiety. Have we got enough planes? Is this system going to be robust enough? Is it going to hold up? Is the observer corps going to work? Are we going to be able to interpret what we're getting from our RDF stations, etc., etc.? You know, that is the big challenge. And it's really, really uncertain. There's no question that they are facing a formidable foe flush with the garlands of victory. And in our next film, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what the Germans have in their arsenal. First of all, what is their fighter force?
Well, yes, and we did say Messerschmitt 109 a moment ago. It's time for the Messerschmitts in our next film. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe on WW2headquarters.com for more Battle of Britain action. Who will win? Well, we know who wins, but
how will those summer months and weeks play out?
I think it's really important to put yourself back into July 1940. Before,
I'm feeling tense just thinking
about
it.
Before it's a done deal, this entire thing. And it is amazing to be here in the Ops Room at Duxford. Thanks for watching.
Cheerio.